I'm 29, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had one of those annoyingly stable relationships people secretly roll their eyes at. My fiancé, Ben, and I live together in a renovated brick apartment building in the River Market district of Kansas City. We had a golden doodle named Murphy, matching espresso mugs from a farmer's market we visited every Saturday, and one of those shared notes app grocery lists that couples think is romantic for some reason. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 8 months. Everyone loved him. My parents adored him because he remembered birthdays and fixed my mom's Wi-Fi without complaining. My friends liked him because he was funny in a dry, low-key way. He worked in corporate finance for a healthcare software company downtown, wore quarter zips constantly, and somehow made spreadsheets sound interesting. I trusted him completely. That's the embarrassing part now, because when people hear work wife, they assume the girlfriend ignored obvious red flags. But honestly, there weren't many at first, at least not ones I recognized. The first time I heard the phrase was at a company happy hour last fall. Ben invited me because his team had just finished some huge merger project. We went to this rooftop bar near Power and Light, and while he was grabbing drinks, one of his coworkers, a guy named Trevor, laughed and said, "You finally get to meet the famous Claire." I smiled politely because I didn't know what that meant. Then he added, "Honestly, we were starting to think Ben's work wife was his real girlfriend." I laughed automatically because everyone else did, but something about it sat weird in my stomach. "Work wife?" I asked. Trevor grinned. "Natalie. They're attached at the hip." Right then, Ben came back carrying drinks, and Trevor immediately looked like he regretted speaking. Ben handed me my cocktail too quickly and said, "Don't listen to Trevor. He's an idiot." Trevor lifted both hands. "Hey, you guys are the ones spending 12 hours a day together." Ben rolled his eyes hard enough to make it seem harmless. At the time, I let it go, because adults have close coworkers, especially in demanding jobs, and honestly, I didn't want to be the insecure girlfriend policing office friendships. That's how women end up looking controlling online. Still, after that night, I started noticing little things. Natalie's name came up constantly. Nat already handled that. Presentation. Nat thinks my boss is panicking over nothing. Nat ordered lunch for the whole team again. At first, I pictured someone older, maybe married, maybe a mom in her 40s. Then I finally saw her. She was tagged in a group photo on Instagram from Ben's office holiday party. Blonde, tiny, probably our age. Perfect teeth. The kind of woman who somehow looks expensive. In plain black jeans, I wish I could say I didn't immediately compare myself to her, but I did. Ben notice me staring at the photo one night while we were on the couch. "That's Natalie?" I asked casually. "Yeah, she's pretty," he shrugged. "Sure, I guess." That answer should have reassured me, but weirdly it did the opposite. It felt rehearsed somehow. Then came the texting. Again, none of it looked terrible individually, but together, it built. His phone lighting up at 11:30 p.m., muted notifications during date nights. Inside jokes I didn't understand. One night we were watching a movie and he laughed at his phone. I asked, "What's so funny?" Natalie sent me a meme about our boss. "Can I see?" And I swear this man physically hesitated before handing me the phone. That tiny pause changed something in me. The meme itself was harmless. Literally just some exhausted raccoon at a computer. But why hesitate? A few weeks later, we were out with my friends at a brewery in Westport. And my best friend Ava asked how wedding planning was going. Before I could answer, Ben groaned dramatically. "Please save me from seating charts." Everyone laughed. Then Ava joked, "You better not make your work wife sit closer than the actual wife." The table went quiet for half a second too long. Ben forced a smile. "What is with people and this work wife thing?" Ava looked confused. "I mean, because you call her that?" I turned toward him slowly. "You call her your work wife?" His face changed immediately. Not guilty. Exactly. Defensive. It's a joke. I remember smiling because I suddenly felt like everyone was watching me. "Oh, you never mentioned that part." "It's not a big deal." Claire, maybe not, but if it wasn't a big deal, why had literally everyone heard about Natalie except me? That night I asked more directly, "Why didn't you tell me you call each other work spouses?" He sighed like I was exhausting him already. "Because I knew you'd react like this." "Like what?" "You're making something out of nothing." "I'm asking a question. It's office culture." People joke around, I crossed my arms. Do you text all your coworkers until midnight too? He stared at me for a second, then came the line that almost ended our engagement right there. You either trust me or you don't. People say that line like it's mature, but honestly, half the time it's just a way to shut someone down. Still, I backed off, partly because I hated conflict, partly because wedding deposits were already paid, and partly because I truly loved him, so I convinced myself I was overthinking everything until February. That was when Ben started guarding his phone. Actually guarding it, face down on counters, taking it into the bathroom, keeping it in his pocket one night, Murphy knocked his phone off the couch accidentally, and Ben reacted so fast you'd think the dog had grabbed a live grenade. I just stared at him. He stared back, then he forced this weird laugh. Damn dog almost gave me a heart attack. I said nothing, because at that point, deep down, I already knew, I just didn't know what exactly I knew yet. A week later, I got the answer. Ben had fallen asleep on the couch after too much whiskey during a snowstorm. The TV was still on, Murphy was curled against his legs, and his phone buzzed on the coffee table. I wish I could say I respected privacy. I didn't. I looked. The message preview said, "Still thinking about your tie tonight. You looked unfairly hot." My entire body went cold. The contact name wasn't even Natalie, it was N. Like that somehow made it less obvious. I opened the phone because apparently my fiancé used the same passcode for everything. The messages weren't explicit. Honestly, I almost wish they had been, because this was worse somehow. Months of emotional intimacy disguised as jokes, her complaining about dating apps, Ben venting about me after arguments, selfies from work, conferences, late night, wish you were here. One message made me physically nauseous. Natalie, sometimes I think you're marrying the wrong girl. Ben had replied, don't start. Not I love Claire, not that's inappropriate. Just don't start. I sat there, shaking. I scrolled further back. Apparently they'd gone to lunch alone constantly, drinks after work, inside jokes about coworkers, complaints about wedding planning. Then I found the message that changed everything. Natalie, does she know about me yet? Ben, no, and I'd like to keep it that way. I don't even remember sleeping that night. The next morning, he acted completely normal, made coffee, kissed my forehead, asked if I wanted breakfast, sandwiches. I looked at him and genuinely wondered if I knew him at all. For 3 days, I said nothing. I went to work, answered emails, pretended my life wasn't detonating internally. Then I did something maybe immature, maybe brilliant. I found Natalie online. Her Instagram was public, and weirdly, she didn't seem like a villain. That confused me most. She had photos hiking in Colorado, cooking disasters, wine nights with friends. She volunteered at an animal rescue. She had a sister in Seattle she posted constantly. She looked normal, human, not some evil seductress, which meant either she didn't know Ben was lying to both of us, or she did and simply didn't care. I needed to know which. So I messaged her. Not aggressively, I literally wrote, "Hey Natalie, this might be awkward, but I'm Ben's fiancée Claire. I'd love to grab coffee sometime. I feel weird hearing so much about you without actually meeting you," she replied 30 minutes later. OMG, absolutely, LOL. Ben always says we'd get along. That message nearly made me throw my phone. We met at a coffee shop in Brookside that Saturday. The second she walked in, I could tell she was nervous, but not guilty nervous, just socially awkward nervous. And within 10 minutes, my entire understanding of the situation cracked open, because Natalie thought Ben and I were basically miserable together. That's what he'd told her. According to Ben, we fought constantly. I didn't support his career. We were only staying together because wedding momentum got out of control. Natalie literally said, "I honestly figured you guys were quietly breaking up after the wedding." I stared at her. "Excuse me?" Her face changed instantly. That was the moment she realized. Not everything, but enough. We sat there for 2 straight hours comparing stories like detectives. Turns out, Ben had been carefully curating different versions of himself for both of us. To me, Natalie was just a coworker. To Natalie, I was basically an emotionally distant roommate he felt trapped with, and here's the truly insane part, she swore nothing. physical had happened. I actually believe her because her reaction seemed genuinely horrified. Once she realized how much he'd manipulated the narrative, she kept saying, "I swear to God, Claire, if I thought you two were solid, I never would have crossed those lines." I believed that too. But emotional cheating is still cheating. By the end of coffee, Natalie looked sick. "So what are you going to do?" And suddenly I had an idea. A terrible, beautiful idea. Our engagement party was the following Friday. About 60 people. Friends, family, co-workers, private room at a brewery near the Crossroads Arts District. Ben had specifically told me Natalie wouldn't be comfortable attending because she didn't know me well enough. Now I understood why. So I smiled at her and said, "Actually, I'd love for you to come." She blinked. "To the engagement party?" "Yeah." Ben will lose his mind. I know. For the first time all afternoon, Natalie smiled. Friday night arrived. I wore the navy dress Ben loved because apparently I enjoy psychological warfare. My mom helped decorate the venue. Ben's sister brought custom cupcakes. People drank local IPAs and took engagement photos beside neon signs. Ben looked relaxed, happy even, like a man fully convinced. He'd gotten away with everything. Then, Natalie walked in. I saw him notice her from across the room. I have never seen blood drain from someone's face that fast. He immediately crossed the room toward me. "What is she doing here?" I sipped my drink calmly. "I invited her." "Why would you do that?" "Because she's your work wife." His jaw tightened instantly. "You need to stop." "Stop what?" "This. Ben, relax. I wanted to meet your friends." Natalie stood awkwardly near the entrance, looking like she might throw up. People around us started sensing tension. Ben lowered his voice hard. "Can we talk privately?" "No." That scared him more than yelling would have. He glanced toward Natalie again, then back at me. "What did you tell her?" "Not much." Mostly listened. His expression changed. That exact second he realized the stories had collided. He whispered, "Claire." I just looked at him. "No, go ahead. Explain which version of me was real." He tried steering me toward a hallway, but I stepped back. Unfortunately for him, his co-workers were now watching openly, including Trevor. And honestly, I think Trevor figured it out immediately. Ben hissed, "You're making a scene." I laughed because that was rich. "I'm making a scene?" Natalie finally walked over then, clearly deciding she was done hiding too. She looked directly at Ben and said, "Did you tell Claire you said you felt trapped with her?" Dead silence. Absolute dead silence. One of Ben's co-workers literally muttered, "Holy shit." Ben started panicking. I never said trapped. Natalie crossed her arms. "You absolutely did." I pulled out my phone. "And did you or did you not tell Natalie I didn't support your career?" His eyes widened. That's when he realized she'd shown me the messages too. Game over. People nearby started quietly, drifting away in that fake, subtle way humans do when drama explodes. Publicly, my future mother-in-law looked horrified. Ben switched strategies instantly. Now suddenly, I was the irrational one. "You went through my phone?" There it was, not denial, not apology, just anger at being caught. I nodded slowly. "Yep, that's insane, Claire. You emotionally cheated on me for months." "I did not cheat." Natalie barked out a laugh at that. And honestly, hearing her react made him even angrier, because he could manipulate us separately, not together. That was the flaw in his whole setup. "You made me sound like some miserable obstacle in your life," I said quietly, while coming home every night pretending everything was fine. Ben rubbed both hands over his face. I was venting. "You told another woman you might be marrying the wrong person." That was out of context. I stared at him for a second. Then something in me just settled. The panic disappeared. The sadness too, weirdly. All I could think was, I cannot marry this man, not because he kissed someone else, because he lied so easily, constantly, casually. Took off my engagement ring right there. Beside the stupid cupcake table, his mom gasped. "Ben?" Immediately said, "Claire, don't do this here." I placed the ring in his hand. "Where would you prefer?" Since apparently honesty requires careful scheduling. He looked genuinely panicked now, like truly panicked. "Can we please just go home and talk?" "No. Please." I shook my head. Then I turned toward Natalie. "You don't owe me anything." But if he starts telling people I'm crazy, I'd appreciate screenshots. She nodded immediately. Absolutely. Ben looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. I grabbed my purse, hugged my mom quickly before she could ask questions, and walked out. The cold air outside hit me so hard it almost felt cleansing. I cried in the parking garage for maybe 20 minutes, not movie crying, just exhausted crying, for a kind where your whole body feels embarrassed, because 4 years is a long time to discover someone wasn't who you thought. Ava came and got me eventually. Apparently, the party basically imploded after I left. Multiple coworkers walked out. Ben and Natalie got into another argument. His sister apparently screamed at him in the parking lot. Trevor, according to Ava, told someone, I knew this would happen eventually, which honestly made me want to punch him too. Like, thanks for the warning. Trevor, super useful after the apocalypse. I moved into Ava's guest room for a while. Ben texted constantly. For the first 2 weeks. Long paragraphs, excuses, apologies, claims. That he loved me and got carried away by attention. At one point, he insisted emotional affairs aren't real. Cheating. That message alone cured about 40% of my heartbreak. The wildest part came later, though. Apparently, Natalie stopped speaking to him entirely after the engagement party. Not because of me specifically, because once she saw how effortlessly he lied to both of us, she realized he'd probably do the same thing to her eventually, which, fair. Last I heard, she transferred to another department. Ben moved into a luxury apartment downtown and started posting gym selfies like a divorced dad speedrunning a midlife crisis. Meanwhile, I kept Murphy, found a smaller apartment near Hyde Park, and learned that peace is actually very quiet after living with someone who makes you question your instincts constantly. Sometimes people ask whether I regret confronting him publicly. Maybe I should. But honestly, no. He built the situation publicly. I just stopped protecting him privately.